everybody, and welcome to another GameGuru MAX live broadcast number 40. Yes, that's right, we're in the 40s. We're nearly at the magic number 42, and what a broadcast we have in store for you on broadcast 42. I don't know what it is, but it must be special. Anyway, welcome everybody. First things first, at top of the hour is finding out who here can listen to me. I've already had one complaint, even before the broadcast even started, that the music wasn't loud enough. So I ramped that up a little bit. Hopefully the volume was correct at the time of the finish of the thing and the start of me actually talking. So I have a chat. You can't see it but I can see it in my window. And I want to make sure that everyone can hear me fine. So I'm just going to find the chat window, and according to many, the music was fine actually. Thank you very much. Synchro and J-Bird Max, thank you very much. You can hear me great. Let's move on. The format of this broadcast, super simple. Aside from the waffling from Lee, you get to ask questions live in the live chat. And at the end of this broadcast, I get to answer them. I get to make up answers as I go along. So please do provide your questions in the live chat for those lucky enough to be attending live. Put a question mark at the end of the sentence so I can quickly scan through the live chat, find those questions and answer them for you. I have something pretty cool to show today in the software. I know you like to see software stuff instead of just plans and waffle. Get to show some software. I would have liked to have showed some art, and I will show some art today. But I've been informed by my top artist that it's going to take 2 more days. And I said, look, guy, take all the time you need to make it awesome. And so that's what he's doing. So next week, I'll be able to show that awesomeness. So stay tuned to that if you can tune in next Wednesday, 4 p.m. GMT. That is the time of our regular weekly broadcasts. So without further ado, let me crack on and show you the software. As I said, please do ask your questions. I can't get to them right now, but I'll get to them in about 10 minutes time. So as I always mention in the broadcast, the thing that you're looking at, the software that you're seeing me run today, is the software you're going to get on Friday. If you're lucky enough to be a pre-order user, you're going to get this build. It's called our Friday builds every Friday. So what I play with today, you get to play with 2 days from now. And this is what you're going to see. May add a few more things between here and Friday, maybe a few extras. But the thing I want to show you is the progress of the model importer. Now, importing models is a massive subject. There are models all over the world in many different formats. Even the same format can throw up 15 different variants. And so it's a big challenge, but I'm pretty pleased with the success rate we're getting and all the different models that we're testing out on. And the one I want to show you is one that I've been using quite a lot for my own tests, which is a truck I bought from Sketchfab for a very reasonable price. And it's in the GLTF version 2 format, which looks something like this. So right away, the importer's already done some clever things for us. It's imported the geometry, of course, you would expect that, but look what it's also done. It's managed to figure out what was the normal texture, what was the roughness, metalness and occlusion, and the emissive. You can test the emissive because if I just scroll to the front of the vial a little bit and do this, you can see that the artist has provided an emissive or a light texture to show where the glowy, lighty parts of the model are. But we'll get back to that in a little way. Just wanted to flag, however, and this is part of the continuing challenge of importing models, that the importer will never always get it right. It's a guesswork. The importer's trying to figure out what the textures mean and where they should go. But because artists have their own naming conventions for texture file names and put in roughness and glossiness and all kinds of things in different color channels, it can never get it right 100%. And this is one such case. You notice the grill is very flat. You can say, oh, it's kind of like metal. It's not metal. It's got it wrong. And I'm going to show you how to solve that. So this is how we do it. Now, I have had questions from my internal testers. What do all these buttons mean? I think let's just start from the top. It's pretty clear what albedo is. It's basically what's called your base color. which provides just the general texture, the colouring of your object. And normal is a normal map. It tells you the undulations in the surface to give you more higher fidelity lighting calculations when you're rendering your, in this case, your truck. And it's managed to figure out the emissive fine. The emissive, as I say, is something that can emit light from a surface. And then now it gets a little bit quasi, and we will be making improvements to the automatic detection of roughness, metalness and occlusion, but we won't always get it right. And this is why I've picked this model as an example, because I can explain how we're going to correct this. So roughness, metalness and occlusion, you may find them as 3 separate textures, or you may find them, the artist has provided, as a single texture and buried this information in different channels of the texture: the red channel, the green channel, the blue channel and the alpha channel. I happen to know that Sketchfab exports a single texture and stores the roughness in the green, the metalness in the blue and the occlusion, the ambient occlusion map, in the red. And so what I can do is, because I know this, for the roughness I'm going to select the green channel of the texture that I've been provided, and the texture itself is called metallic roughness.png. Now this is standard when you auto export from Sketchfab as a GLTF, but if you get it from, say, a Unity store or Unreal store or any other store, Cube, Brush, it could be whatever the artist has named them. So there could be a million versions of this, but I happen to know where things are for this one. So the roughness is in the green, so I'm going to select that for green. And then the blue channel of this texture I know has the metalness in it. And I also know that the red channel of this texture has the ambient occlusion. And you'll notice something already. Look, it's nice and metal now. How do I know? If I slide around the metalness slider, that's what you saw before when it didn't really know where the metal was. That's the after. That is the image that the artist wanted you to see. Now, we didn't need to mess with the emissive because it got that right. It guessed that one right. We've got some nice lights going on there. So hopefully that explains when you get this on Friday what the RGBA actually does. But before I leave, I want to introduce you to something else. Now this is still an early feature. It's just been added, but it's the scaling. The idea is that right now, this is the original unit scaling. What the artist has exported is fine, but the raw data of it is in units. But that's not really real world. Unit is a unit. It's 1 or 0. But the artist may have intended that unit should have been, say, a meter, or that unit should represent an inch, or that unit should represent a centimeter. You now get to pick what that scaling is for this object. So just to let you know that GameGuru Classic treated units as inches, and this coincidentally the artist has also assumed that this vehicle is units are in inches, and I can prove that a little bit later. But you get to choose now the scaling metric of your object, and we've also added something called automatic scaling, which no matter how big or how tiny the object was, we scale it up to a reasonable size for GameGuru MAX. And then once you've done that, you can then of course minorly adjust the scale as you see fit. I'm going to keep it around 100 because that is actually the correct scale. And one last thing I want to show, again, another new feature. At least I've added all these crazy new features. We want something that's stable. Reasonably confident this is stable. It's the collision shape. So by default in previous builds, you only got like something hidden in the background. You didn't know what it was. Now you get to pick. It could be a box collision shape. It could be follows every single triangle in this model. Creates a physics shape out of that. You can make it a sphere, so it just rolls away. Same with a cylinder, it'll roll away. Convex hull is a cool one. Imagine wrapping this vehicle in shrink wrap and pulling the air out of the inside of that shrink wrap as it covers, and it makes it into a blob, but it's a low polygon blob. It's very efficient for physics, but it means you get like all the lovely contours, like being able to stand on the back bed of this truck, for example. So we're going to pick that convex hull. And you've got static and dynamics. Dynamics are things that animate, they move, they interact with the player and other objects and things like that. Static, think of it as like baked into the backdrop. It's like, it's there, it will never animate, it will never move, it's baked in, but we get the benefit of making optimizations to make drawing those things really fast. And I actually don't want this vehicle to move, it's just scenery. So I'm going to select static object mode. Pretty happy. There's lots more features you can play with, and you can do that on Friday. You can make them double-sided if it's like a leaf or something like that. If it's a puddle on the floor, you can use planar reflection, all that kind of cool stuff. But I'm happy with this. All we need to do is give it a name. Now, I already did a previous experiment, because my God, Lee's talking in a really well-rehearsed fashion. It's because I ran through this little bit before. So I'm going to call it truck B, and then I'm going to save the object. So dink. Now, just to give you a sense of scale, I'm going to go and pick a character. In this case, our army girl that you saw in the last broadcast. And then I'm going to just find the truck. And to save me some time, we'll use the search feature. There's truck B, and there's our truck. Let's get rid of that little plane. That plane is something that was added by the artist to make it look really pretty in Sketchfab. But in a game, you don't really need that plane. You just want the vehicle. Eventually you might want it to drive around or something. But here we are, and you can see the metal works, you can see the reflection in the window. I'll show you something else. What the settings that you set in the importer, you also get access to in the materials section. So as you can see, you can still control all the textures, the strengths, and all the other settings for each of the individual meshes of that object. So we've been really happy the way we've pulled out all the different settings that you might want to change and expose them through the importer. And of course, when you drop them into the world, you can still change it on a per object basis. And you can see, because 1 unit equals 1 inch, that looks about right, doesn't it? That's our standard character, create a character. Looks like she can fit in that truck, no problem whatsoever. So the final test, of course, if we press test game, we're going to try and jump onto the back of this truck, because remember we said it was a convex hull. So here we go, and we're in the truck, see? Collides along the sides. But it's super fast physics, because it's not taking every single polygon. It's just done a very nice calculation to make sure that all of the necessary standy-on-y, slidey-along-y points have been calculated, which is what all AAA modern games do. They don't waste polygons or CPU cycles. So there you go, that is the importer, the improved custom materials and some additions of scaling mode and collision. So hopefully you like the look of that. I hope to get some more feedback from you. If you find a model that doesn't quite cut the mustard, absolutely please let me know. I already have like 600 models that I am going to test through, make sure that the importer handles everyone from all 4 corners of the game assets spectrum. So by release, yes, we will have a pretty solid importer, able to support OBJ, FBX, GLTF version 2, and our own proprietary DBO format. So hopefully you enjoyed that little slice of the software. More to show next week, more stuff to show next week, and hopefully a report on many bug fixes from the issues board, which I am rearing to get to. But I wanted to make sure this was right before coming away from it. You know, there's no point leaving something half done. So I spent the extra time to make sure that it was really what everyone needed to get an arbitrary third-party model into GameGuru MAX, rendered correctly, with the correct scaling and collision. So now I'm going to switch over to live chat, which is here. Hopefully you can see it. I'm going to go to the top, and I'm going to look for a question mark, and I'm going to answer your questions. Looking at the clock, it's now 40 minutes into the broadcast, which gives me 1 minute to answer all of your questions. Throwing that away, I'm going to give you 6 minutes to answer questions, and as always, first come first serve. So we're looking for the first question mark at the top of the chat. Jay Birdman was making no bones about it and added 7 question marks. So the question is, when loading a previous level, the ground texture previously painted on disappears. This is not ideal. Will this be addressed soon? Many question marks. It's always good to note that all these Friday builds are still development builds. We are working on the software as you are playing these builds. Do not expect that something that worked or loaded or saved fine and stuff will continue to be the case. We're changing data structures, we're changing file formats, we might be adding and subtracting things, we might be entirely replacing something. So you should take it with a pinch of salt. That if you create something and save it, that's fine. But if in some future build you try and load that thing in and we've changed it fundamentally, it won't load. That being said, what you've described, Jaybird Max, might just be a bug. So please do post it in the issues board with all the reproducibles so I can reproduce it, see the bug and fix it. But it could just be the fact that we've changed something and we never intended to support some earlier thing that you created and then subsequently saved. So hopefully that's not too disappointing. Looking for another question mark. Ears bleeding from volume. That's from Nigel Weatherby. I was instructed by Rick to increase maximum volume. So I apologise for that. It was not my choice. I did do some pre-tests, try and get my volumes just right. I guess I got it wrong both times. Looking for a question mark. This is from Tam51. I was wondering if anyone has had problems with the latest build as it keeps crashing on me. My question is, are you going to fix this? It's fixed. It's fixed for this Friday build. There was a monstrous bug which we're trying right into memory that wasn't even initialized, and it caused multiple crashes in different areas. Fixed. So thanks again to those who reported it in the issues board and provided the necessary evidence. It was very easy then for us to reproduce it and fix it. So please do continue to post in the issues board if you do find bugs that are annoying you. Looking for the next question mark down the list. This is from PC Veteran. How big will the asset library be for Max? Great question. We don't know, but it will be bigger than I originally intended. In the process of doing things like the terrain stuff and making sure that we have a good variety of demo levels for you, we found that we had to source quite a lot of assets in order to pull some great visuals together. And it actually is amassing to quite a decent library. Now, don't get me wrong, this won't be the all-conquering, you never need to buy an asset ever again from anywhere because we've supplied 10,000 models. But it will give you a good selection to start off with, but still consider it as a starter kit. We will be expecting GameGuru MAX users to go out into the world, to go to places like Sketchfab and other asset stores and buy them and import them into your game project for your particular idea, and then get them integrated into the story and the plot and the gameplay and logic and all that kind of stuff. We're no longer being the one-stop shop for every single model you could ever imagine. It was an impossible task. We can't redo what's already happening out there in the various asset stores, and so we're not going to try. So if you want a particular model, check out the asset stores. We'll make sure that when you find it and download it and buy it and download it, that it will import into GameGuru MAX. That will be our mission. But as to the size of it, yeah, I think it'll be a decent size. Lots of models, a couple of different styles. You won't be disappointed, because another thing, there's a reason why you won't be disappointed, is we're aiming for quality. We want to make sure everything that we do add to Max has a level of quality. They will render good, they look good, they work correctly. So watch out for that. Looking forward to that. Will there be Quest 2 support? There'll be Quest 2 support in the sense that it will work with Oculus Link. So it will be a desktop run experience, but you can then do the Oculus Quest 2 link, which actually sends that desktop experience to the headset. There will not be standalone Quest 2 support, because that runs on the Android operating system. And just for anyone who's new to these broadcasts, GameGuru MAX is currently not, or no plans for, supporting any other platforms apart from Windows 10 or above. We're not supporting Android, for many reasons that you can ask me in the forum later on. Next question. This is from Bellidos3D. How accurate is the convex hull collision in Max? Great question. Both Unity and Unreal have convex hull collisions, but they've never been able to get it very accurate, so most people make their own in the model. You see, and I suspect Unity and Unreal's, it's an automatic convex hull calculation. So you're leaving it up to the computer to try and figure out what your convex hull should look like. And remember, it's a computer, it has no real context. It doesn't know what a car looks like. It knows what polygons are, and does a best guess. So yeah, I think the idea of creating a physics mesh and using that instead of something that was generated by a computer is always going to be the preferred option when you're designing things at that meticulous, accurate level. I suppose the next follow-on question, will GameGuru MAX support us to import a physics mesh instead of any of the automated shapes? Great idea. It's not on the list. If 5 people request it in the forums, that accompany this broadcast, it's going in. So there's a challenge for you. But of course, remember, for that specific physics mesh, you've got to kind of be an artist to generate it. Otherwise, you're left with the computer generating the convex hull for you. And let me explain something else about convex hulls. They're not concave. Think of it like a ball with some definition, like a bit of Play-Doh. You press it in. That's a convex hull. A concave hull, think of it like a bowl where you've scooped out the insides, and then once you've scooped it out, you can fill it with marbles. That's concave. We only do convex hulls at the moment. If you want concave, it needs a brain bigger than mine to do an algorithm which generates it. They are out there, they just haven't replied to me. So just to make sure you know what convex hull collision actually is. Looking for another question. This is another one from Bellydos 3D. Also, would there be any chance we could get the option to use our own collision model, separate objects inside the model, like other engines do? See 28 seconds ago. Another question. This is from Jose Renoni Matilla. Sorry, that I got your name wrong. Hello, how are you? Doing really good. I would like to know when the new version goes on sale on the Steam platform. It will go out around the same time as the release of a website version. We have an open release date. We don't know. If we don't know, we can't tell you. If you've got some super urgent deadline, then you probably want to look elsewhere for the game making tools. Stay busy and stay active. Keep checking on what we're doing from time to time. But when we get closer to when we know, my God, this is a really great product, we've got to release it, then we'll start issuing predicted release dates. But as right now, we don't have one for you. Sorry. Another question, PC Veteran, how will AI be improved, if at all? Will we be able to have allies and set AI against each other? Yes, indeed. We have two great things about AI. One, going to develop a visual logic system, so you don't have to script, you don't have to really know that much about game AI, but you do know how to connect things together. You know how to connect a switch with a light. You know how to switch a group of enemies to suddenly be active. You know, these common things you'll be able to do visually with very little pre-training. That's the coolest thing. And yes, we are going to do some additional new behaviours which improve the sort of AI you would expect out of the box, like allies and factions. So you'd have two groups of enemies that actually despise each other, so they'll attack you and each other. So we have plans for those cool kinds of things. Watch this space when we start talking about gameplay logic and AI. But right now we just want to get the visuals and the importing and all those basic building blocks sorted first. We're actually getting a question from the moderator. What was all the black flashing when you were moving around the car in test game mode? As explained previously, this model from Sketchfab was created by an artist who thought it wise to create two meshes within his mesh. The first mesh was the car, which is great, but he created a second mesh which was like a shadow under the car, which makes it look really good when it's being previewed in Sketchfab, but in a game engine there's zero need for that second mesh. And so one of the things that we'll be adding to the importer is the ability to completely erase a mesh. Not just hide it, which you can do through setting alpha clipping to 0 or setting transparency and then the alpha of the base texture to 0, which will both hide that second mesh, but just to get rid of the mesh completely. You don't need the mesh. The artist thought it was useful. You don't need it for yours, so you can get rid of it. So that's what the big black triangle was. Unfortunately, you know, unless you have your own artists and you bring in stuff from a third party, you will have to deal with things like that. So looking for the time, and the time is is 24 minutes past the hour. I gave you 6 and you took 10 off me. But as is my custom, I'm going to answer 2 more questions in the order they were answered, because I think it would be unfair if I just stopped. So what are the next questions? So thanks to Rick for stealing one of the community's questions. I'm sure they will love you for that. The next question, someone who hasn't asked a question before. 3com, any chance to add entity ID near to the entity name? Entity ID, next to the name. Certainly in the software itself, it shows you the entity element ID next to the name. If that isn't there, it's a bug and it should be in there. If you mean something else, please post that clarification in the forum later, and I'm happy to give you a full expose on a thorough answer. And someone else who hasn't touched a question before in the order they were asked is from Prime U LLC. Will there be an exporter to AGK Studio? What a question to end a broadcast about GameGuru MAX. So thank you for that, Prime U LLC. But I will answer the question. Will there be an exporter to AGK Studio? Just thought about that question. You mean from GameGuru MAX, could I have something and then export it? So textures, 3D, scenery data, sound triggers, logic, all of that to the App Game Kit Studio, where you can load it in App Kit Studio and program your game engine from scratch, in code from scratch. There are no plans for that. It's a great idea. It was done with GameGuru Classic with a product, a DLC written by a third party, the almighty Preben, called GameGuru Loader. He has not indicated that he's going to do a GameGuru MAX loader. I see it being possible. I think there is a possibility of that. But for more answers, you're going to have to ask the original author of GameGuru Loader, which you'll find in the forums, and hopefully you get a great answer from Preben. So there it is. That is my, I was going to say that's my 50 minutes. No, that is my almost half an hour. So I hope you enjoyed what I got to show you today in the software. Join me next week when it's usual time, Wednesday, 4 p.m. GMT. Just want to end this broadcast by saying, if you like what you see and you're not a pre-order user, we're offering a 25% discount if you want to pre-order it, which means every Friday you get a build of what we've been developing in that week. So if you're a pre-order user, you'll be able to go to our website and see a download, grab it, uses an auto updater, so changes, you don't have to re-download 5 gig, it will only detect the changes and download those. It's a pretty nice system. So if you're interested in that, go check out the GameGuru MAX page. I'm sure the link is somewhere around here. So until next week, I hope you enjoyed everything, and I'll speak to you again then. Until then, goodbye, and thank you.